It started quietly, almost invisibly, without breaking headlines or triggering global alarms. At first, it looked like scattered travel records, visa applications, short-term stays that blended into the ordinary flow of people moving around the world. But as the months passed, a pattern emerged. Tens of thousands of Ukrainian women were arriving in the Philippines, not as tourists passing through for a week or two, but as people settling in, building routines, finding communities, and, in many cases, choosing to stay. When the number crossed an estimated 38,000, it stopped being a coincidence. It became a story. One that raised eyebrows in Kyiv, sparked debates online, and revealed a deeply human journey shaped by war, survival, hope, and unexpected cultural connection. To understand why the Philippines became a destination, you have to go back to the beginning of the crisis that pushed so many Ukrainian women out of their homes. The war did not just destroy buildings and infrastructure. It fractured families and futures. Men of fighting age were required to stay behind, while women, children, and the elderly were encouraged to leave if they could. Europe absorbed millions, but not everyone found safety, stability, or opportunity there. Some faced overcrowded shelters, limited work permits, language barriers, and a sense of being permanently temporary. For many Ukrainian women, survival was not just about escaping bombs. It was about finding a place where they could breathe, work, and imagine a future again. The Philippines entered this story quietly. It was not an obvious choice. It is far from Europe, culturally different, and not usually associated with Ukrainian migration. But it offered something rare: relatively easy visa access, affordable living compared to Western countries, and a society known for warmth, hospitality, and resilience. Filipino culture, shaped by centuries of hardship, colonial history, and overseas migration, has a deep emotional understanding of displacement. Many Ukrainians who arrived described being surprised by how familiar that feeling of shared struggle was. For some women, the journey began with online research late at night, scrolling through forums, Facebook groups, and Telegram chats. Others followed friends who had already gone. Stories spread quickly. People smile at you here. You can work online and live decently. No one looks at you like a burden. These were not official advertisements. They were whispered reassurances passed from one displaced woman to another. When Ukrainian women arrived in Manila, Cebu, Davao, or smaller coastal cities, they did not arrive as victims. They arrived as survivors. Many were professionals, designers, programmers, teachers, nurses, entrepreneurs. Others were mothers trying to rebuild normalcy for their children. The Philippines, with its growing digital economy, became a practical base. Internet access, co-working spaces, and time zone compatibility with Europe allowed remote work to continue. A woman could attend a Zoom meeting with a client in Berlin in the morning and walk her child to school under palm trees in the afternoon. Culturally, the adjustment was easier than expected. Filipinos are family-oriented, expressive, and emotionally open. Ukrainian women often spoke about how neighbors checked in on them, how strangers helped with directions, how small acts of kindness softened the pain of exile. In markets, vendors learned to pronounce unfamiliar names. In schools, children learned to say privet alongside hello. Churches, cafes, and community centers slowly became meeting points where stories were exchanged, tears were shared, and laughter returned. Romantic relationships also played a role, though this part of the story is often misunderstood or sensationalized. Some Ukrainian women formed genuine relationships with Filipino men or expatriates living in the Philippines. These connections were not transactions. They were human bonds formed during vulnerable moments. Shared meals, shared histories of struggle, shared dreams of stability. But online narratives often reduced these women to stereotypes, ignoring the complexity of their choices and agency. The reality was far more nuanced. As the numbers grew, attention from the Ukrainian government followed. Officials became concerned not only about population loss, but about long-term demographic consequences. Ukraine was already facing a declining birth rate before the war. Losing tens of thousands of women of childbearing age raised serious alarms. There were fears that temporary displacement would become permanent migration. Questions emerged. Would these women return after the war, or would they build new lives elsewhere, leaving behind a country struggling to rebuild? From Kyiv's perspective, this was not just about borders. It was about identity, continuity, and survival as a nation. Public statements emphasized the importance of return, of rebuilding together. But for women, thousands of kilometers away, safety and stability felt more urgent than patriotic calls. Many expressed guilt. They loved their homeland deeply. They followed news daily. They donated money, volunteered online, taught their children Ukrainian language and history. But love alone could not erase trauma. In the Philippines, life continued in a rhythm that felt both foreign and healing. Jeepneys rattled through streets painted with political slogans and pop culture art. Street food stalls filled the air with the smell of grilled fish and garlic rice. Ukrainian women learned to eat with their hands, to say salamat, to laugh at karaoke nights that stretched past midnight. Slowly, grief coexisted with joy. Some women found work teaching English or European languages. Others opened small online businesses, sold handmade crafts, or offered consulting services. A few partnered with Filipinos to start cafes or travel services catering to foreigners. These were not stories of dependency, but of contribution. Local economies benefited quietly, without fanfare. Children adapted faster than adults. In playgrounds, accents disappeared. Games replaced fear. A Ukrainian child chasing a Filipino child along a beach was not thinking about geopolitics or borders. That image alone captured why return was not always simple. How do you uproot a child who has finally found peace? Still, the connection to Ukraine never faded. Community events marked Ukrainian holidays. Blue and yellow flags appeared at gatherings. Traditional food was cooked with ingredients sourced from Filipino markets. Songs were sung softly, sometimes through tears. The Philippines became a place of refuge, not replacement. Back in Ukraine, public debate intensified. Some accused women abroad of abandoning their country. Others defended them fiercely, reminding critics that survival is not betrayal. Social media amplified extremes, while reality lived quietly in between. Governments can track numbers, but they cannot measure fear, loneliness, or the courage it takes to start over in a land where everything feels unfamiliar. The Philippine government largely stayed neutral, treating Ukrainian arrivals as any other foreigners within immigration law. There were no grand political statements, no propaganda. Just routine processing, extensions, and the unspoken understanding that people fleeing war deserve dignity. This quiet approach contrasted sharply with louder international responses elsewhere. As months turned into years, the question remained unresolved. Was this migration temporary or permanent? The answer differed for every woman. Some planned to return the moment peace was secured. Others admitted, in whispers, that they were not sure they could go back to a place filled with memories of loss. Some hoped to split their lives between both worlds. What made this movement unique was not just the number, but the direction. from a war-torn European nation to a Southeast Asian archipelago known more for beaches than asylum. It challenged assumptions about where safety and opportunity can be found. It reminded the world that migration is not always toward power or wealth, but toward humanity. In Filipino homes, Ukrainian accents blended into dinner conversations. In Ukrainian hearts, Filipino warmth left an imprint that would never fade. This was not a story of escape alone. It was a story of connection across oceans, of resilience in unfamiliar sunlight, of women refusing to let war define the rest of their lives. As history continues to unfold, the final chapter has not yet been written. Perhaps many will return, carrying stories of kindness from the Philippines back to a rebuilding Ukraine. Perhaps others will stay, becoming part of the Filipino mosaic while remaining Ukrainian at heart. Either way, this movement has already reshaped lives, challenged governments, and revealed something timeless. When the world breaks, people do not just run from danger. They run toward hope, even if it lies on the other side of the world. And in the Philippines, under the same sun that has watched generations survive storms and hardship, thousands of Ukrainian women found not just shelter, but a moment to breathe again.